Welcome everybody to our inaugural session of the Permission to Do You in Your Marketing webinar series. I'm so excited to have everybody here today. We have a fantastic panel for you guys. And what we're going to be talking about today is permission to do you in your marketing, figuring out what it means to do you. We probably all think that sounds great, right? We'll just show up and do ourselves in our marketing, but sometimes it's not as easy to actually figure out what that is. And so we have a lovely panel of guest experts here from a variety of different backgrounds that are going to be sharing with you guys today some of the things that helped them along their journey of how they figured out how they could show up authentically in their business. And then we're going to have some tips and tricks for you guys as well on how you guys can do that too. So we're going to have panel discussion for probably about the first 30-40 minutes, and then we should have lots of time for Q&A as well. So if you're joining us live on the Zoom, please feel free to pop any questions that you do have in the chat, and feel free to pop them in there as you go. We will just kind of save the Q&A for the end, but if you think of a question, feel free to pop it in there as you go. Same thing on Facebook. So we are streaming live on Facebook. If you guys are watching on Facebook, welcome. Let us know in the comments that you're joining us, and you can post any questions that you have from the Facebook crew in the Facebook comments, and I will be watching those as well. So you'll probably see my eyes darting back and forth. All right, so the first thing that I would love for all of our lovely panelists to do, I'm going to just give you all a quick moment to introduce yourself. So who you are, who you serve, and what it is you're passionate about. So let's go with Kirsten first.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us as well today. So I'm Kirsten Newman. I am a burnout and alignment coach. And really the people I serve are women who are getting themselves caught up in a pattern of burnout with their business. And it's really about showing these women how to sort of step back from that, how to feel safe stepping back from that burnout to start with, how to tune back into our bodies, into kind of our hearts, really, where our truth is stored, and sort of finding our alignment through that stepping back, through that reconnecting process, and then figuring out what it is that we do want from our business. And I'm absolutely passionate about the healing process. So a lot of my work involves healing and going in depth with, we have burnout habits, but I like to get to the root cause of what's behind those habits. Why are we perfectionists? Why are we procrastinating? Why are we, torturing ourselves and hustling? So that's really what I'm passionate about.
Awesome. Okay, to break up the lovely British accents, let's go with Michelle next.
Well, I'm Michelle, tuning in from Florida, so I have quite the American accent, a little bit of the South too, if you can hear it. It's wonderful to be here, Tracy. Thank you for bringing us together and hosting it. It's a very important topic. What I do is I am a personal brand strategist. So what I specialize in, I've really honed down to experts, which you might be a coach, consultant, or even a former exec who has left that role and become an entrepreneur. So I call it like an expert entrepreneur. And essentially that was actually me. So I have a lot to say about today and owning your thing. But what I help people do is basically, my word is recognize kind of deeply like who I am. You got to start branding the basics, the foundational stuff before you can show up as you. You got to know all about you and what you want to help, what do you stand for, all that good stuff. And then we take it further with the marketing aspects and the visibility online and elsewhere. So I'm very passionate about the word recognize. People need to be recognized, and it essentially starts from inside, because we have to recognize our true worth, our true self before others, and then we have to know what that is, and then have others recognize it. So it goes both ways. So that's what I'm passionate about, and I'm just really excited to be here and break that down a little bit further. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle, everyone, is also a certified story brand guide. So if you've heard of story brand, she knows all that stuff. All right, Namisha, over to you.
Thank you, thank you. Hello, lovely people. Yes, so my name's Namisha, and yes, I'm from the UK as well. I'm from Winchester, which is sort of an hour south of London. So building on the theme of really kind of taking care of us, right? Taking care of you. What I do is what I believe, and what I believe is that all human beings, right, can create whatever they truly, truly want, okay, with less drama, less stress, by believing on purpose, right? Believing in themselves, believing in whatever it is they're trying to go after, and then kind of believing in the journey and everything that that brings. And then the people that obviously that's for, in order to make the difference. So that's what I'm all about. And it is leading on the lovely Kristen and Michelle in terms of really knowing who you are, growing from that place, and then being who you are, but perhaps even being the version of yourself that has actually created that result that you really, really want. Who I serve is very much people, right? People who want to believe, people who see themselves as believers already, but perhaps they're ready to go to their next level, right? There's something that's preventing them to go really, really strong and whack up that volume that they know they have control of. And what I'm passionate about is really just showcasing this, right, with my own experience, and being an example of what's possible. And that's not only to my clients, but also to my family, to my children, in everything that I do. So I'm very, very passionate about this concept of believing and then taking action from that place.
That's so awesome.
Me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have all of you guys. And I just thought of this too, because it's the first episode. I will do a quick intro to myself and why we're all together here today. So I'm Tracy Borreson. I am a brand identity coach, and I work very much in the arena of helping people find their true voice. And I'm just a big believer that everything in our world can be very loud and overwhelming. And sometimes getting that sound out from inside of us can feel really heavy. And getting back to the place where you really are truly connected to that fire inside, so it feels a little bit easier for you to share your message, because there's so many great messages. And I'm actually really excited. There's a few of my clients who are on here today. And like, I have watched you guys just so many good things. Jeff just announced he's got a book coming out and he's signed with the publisher, and like, all the good things. This is about sharing voices. And so this whole platform, the whole webinar series, is about giving people the opportunity to share their voices, get it outside of your body into the market, so you can make the difference that you want to make. All right, with that, we don't all start from that point, right? Like we don't, well, actually, I think we do. When we're born, most of us are in that place where we just say it like it is, right? I have a 2.5-year-old, so I'm very much in the say it like it is stage. And then somehow, I think it starts probably in like middle school, junior high, and you start to worry about everything the world is thinking of you instead of just showing up as your authentic self. And so it hides from us. If you guys have read the book The Alchemist, there's this very great example in there where the boy is talking to his heart, and his heart is saying, like, I don't like you to feel sad. And when I speak up and you have to quiet me, then you feel sad. So I stop speaking up. And it's not that the heart still isn't in there thinking all those things, saying all those things, it's that it stops speaking up because it doesn't want to bring you pain. I thought that was just a very beautiful description of what happens, because ourselves, our true authentic self, our personal brand, it doesn't go away. It's inside of us all of the time. And so it becomes an activity to try and get it out of our body. So I would love to hear from our panelists today is an example in your journey where you realized that perhaps you weren't as connected as you wanted to be to that spark inside, and a different decision that you decided to make to embrace that a little bit better. I'm all about flipping up rotation. So let's start with Michelle on this one.
All right. Well, we all should practice what we preach as, service providers, but sometimes, we're stuck in our own heads, even with what you actually do, right? Is that common for all of you? One of the things I noticed last year during COVID and mostly through the fall was I wasn't showing up authentically online, teach people how to do it, yet I was too busy or whatever, stuck in my brain. So, fear is scary. So for me, I have to quit overanalyzing it and just take the plunge. And so the best way to do that is to take people with you. And that is not in a weird way. It's a good way. I'll explain. For me, I hang out in LinkedIn all the time. That's where my platform is, my people. So I wasn't a consistent poster. I wasn't putting myself out there. My previous role, I was posting promo stuff, cringed when I did it, but had to do it. So I decided on January 1st to start something called organically it happened, the 365 challenge. Well, I have committed after being fearful of posting 365 days every day. That's crazy, right? But guess what? There are a lot of people like me I found who were in the same boat and they just needed someone to help them jump too. And so now there's about 250 of us in this challenge and probably more, not in the challenge in our group. But anyway, we're posting consistently and seeing amazing things. Okay. So we have to embrace, like, the inside of me wanted to be a content creator constantly and help people. And the same thing happened. So it's been going great. And then here's the next one, video. Are any of you like totally scared to be on video? Maybe not, maybe. A lot of my people in my community were, and I was too. But here's the weird thing. I can talk to anyone and I'm very outgoing, but for some reason, getting out and being scared was hard. So I took the plunge and did that too. I did a 30-second video the other day and it was fantastic. So I guess you can't overthink it. Just realize who you are. And it's the most fascinating thing. After I did it, it prompted other people to do it. And it feels like the Band-Aid was ripped off and you can breathe and feel free. And now I'm going to be committing to like 1 or 2 a week now because there's nothing to be scared of. There's people out there who want and need to hear your voice and for you to encourage others. So that's what I say. Just get someone else to go along the journey with you and just jump because you're not going to fall. I mean, you're going to learn, but you're going to probably go even higher. So that's my words of wisdom for my story.
Oh, I love that, Michelle. And Adrienne is actually sharing that she finds video quite scary as well. And I mean, this is something I promoted in my Facebook group, going live, because it is intimidating to people, especially if you're going live in front of your audience, right? You're trying to make an impression, you're trying to make an impact. But something that's important to remember is that making an impact isn't necessarily tied to the length of your video, whether or not you stutter on your video, whether or not you go on tangents. I say this to my community all the time because I was like, if you don't like to follow me off on tangents, then you stopped listening to me a long time ago, right? So there's all of these things. I think we put a lot of level of perfection when people think about video. And I think, well, personally for me, I've gotten a lot more response the more authentic your video is, right? So the more and more scripted it starts to sound like a promo, right? And then people are like, oh, promo, versus here, we're just showing up, we're having a conversation, no one has a script, right? Like we go with it and we say what is on our heart. And that is where service providers can make a big impact on their people. And that's where your people, not all people, your people will resonate with your message.
Yeah, and the funny you say that, Tracy, because what prompted me to do the videos, I do a weekly Clubhouse, and we were talking about video for your personal brand, and it just fired me up. So I jumped up from my thing, shouted in my office, and that was one of the things I said, here's the thing, no one is self-analyzing yourself like you are. Your video is just moving through the feed, and as you like cringe and go, oh my gosh, the world's looking, everyone likes you. It's no judgment against you, but we're all busy. It just moves through the feed and no one thinks probably twice about it. Okay. So, but the thing about it is, I cannot tell you how many comments I got on it that people are like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you, to know you, to hear you, and it could be me or you or anybody. People just want that complete dimension. So I highly recommend it. 60 seconds or less is all you need. If you could do it in 30 or 40 seconds, even better, so that's what I encourage you to do.
I love that. Thanks so much, Michelle. Okay, Namisha, let's hear your story about a time that you found some insight into who the you really the real you is?
Oh, yes, it was a big one for me. So I'll kind of go back really into 2018. So my backstory was 18 years in corporate, working for the same company, UK's air traffic control provider. Really lucrative career, senior leader, done loads of stuff. But in 2018, after having our second child, I got sick. And I always had this thought after having our son that, how is this going to work? You know, corporate rat race. I'm still super ambitious, but I want to be a mom, you know, everything that goes with that normal motherhood transition, right? So I had that thought anyway, but I guess I just didn't know, right? I didn't know what else. Why would I leave NATS, right? Golden handcuff and the company and everything I knew. But I got sick, right? So God spoke. I got sick and I had a cocktail of some pretty nasty viruses. And a long story short, I was off work for the first time ever for 6 months, right? And that was the best thing ever, right? Because I was given the gift of time, and I was given the gift of going within to really discover who it is I truly was, what I stand for, how I was going to get over this sickness, right? And how I was just going to show up for my children and get out of bed every day. And so it was almost forced upon me to do this whole kind of brand identity, which, you know, clearly I had lost, right? And so that was the awakening for me. I had an opportunity to, what I now reflect on is to reinvent myself inside out. And it wasn't pleasant, don't get me wrong. You know, I was on my knees, I had all sorts of things done, but it was the best thing in hindsight because I was able to really do some good work and go in. And with all the good practices that kind of all the wellness and the well-being and things that no doubt Kristen will touch on, help me and really go within and pause and be present and reflect and, you know, all those good things that were always there for me, but I just didn't have the capacity, didn't have the thinking, didn't have, you know, anything, the willingness even perhaps to do all of that. But here I was, and it was created for me. So that for me was the real kind of shift in my whole being as I am now. And I would really say that it's almost like I'm a different person, who I was then and who I am now, you know, totally different. So yeah, that was a big one.
I think, like, because I've heard that story before too, right? And what happens, whether it's a sickness or something else that kind of by default creates the space for you, is that people don't have the space, right? Like, it's not part of our habits to create this space to just kind of figure out like who we are and ask yourself those questions. And I always say this is one of the biggest benefits of working with a coach, is that they give you that space and they force you to look inside in a way that you haven't done that before. And then really that, like, I would encourage everybody who's listening to this just to think, like, look at your day, look at your schedule. I'm a working mom with a 2-year-old at home, right? My schedule is like pretty much the most regimented thing. So look at your schedule and look, do you have time for yourself? And I'm not talking about, I know lots of people talk about self-care, right? And self-care is important, but the space in your head is actually what the self-care is meant to do for you, right? So if you're sitting and getting a pedicure, but you're worried the whole time about, or you're like on your phone scrolling Facebook to make sure you don't miss a client or whatever, that's not the headspace. That's not self-care. So it's one step farther than that. It's the space in your head. And Kristen can probably speak to this too. It's just, you have to have that space, the clarity of thought. And it is helpful when we create that space on purpose. So thank you so much, Namisha, for sharing that. Okay, Kirsten, you are up, my friend.
Yeah, no, absolutely bang on what you're saying about creating space in your head. And actually that's, yeah, the example I'd like to use. I mean, I can fully relate to Namisha with your story, my lovely, because quite a few years ago now, I had a mental breakdown, and that was my awakening, and that was what brought me into kind of my initial, you know, concept of my business, my alignment as it was then. And that business chugged along really nicely for me for 3.5 years as a healer and a coach. But it was all one-to-one in-person work. And then 2020 hit us and COVID hit us, and the UK went into lockdown for most of the year. My husband was out of work, and I was thrown into absolute fear. And fear is one of the emotions that really does knock us off our game, isn't it? It really throws us out of alignment. Fear is a terrible one for that. And I just got, I realized I needed a presence online. I realized that I needed to be serving online, to be changing how I was serving. And I got caught up in all these different Facebook groups, these entrepreneur groups, these coaching groups. And I ended up working for 6 weeks with a coach in the end, because I was so fearful and so panicked that I was doing everything wrong, and I just was so desperate to do it right so I could get an income flowing again. And I remember saying this, and I know I said this to you the other day, Tracy. I remember saying these words coming out my mouth when I was having like a discovery call with this coach that I went with. And this is so incredibly not me, but nonetheless, I said to her, I am a plug and play person. If you tell me exactly what I need to do with my business, I will do exactly what you say. I'll replicate everything. And so obviously I ended up with a coach, and it's not her fault, and she gets amazing results with her clients usually. But I ended up with the wrong coach for me, because she ended up helping me niche in an area that I didn't feel right for me. It wasn't quite where I needed to be. She ended up, she would literally take my messaging and she would edit it and reword it to the point where she was using her own terms of reference, for humor and culture and stuff rather than mine. And it just was a horrendous feeling. I just started feeling very anxious, very unwell. I didn't like my business. I didn't want to turn up for my business. And that's where you then can get caught up, can't you, in this notion of, I'm procrastinating, I'm not showing up for myself, I need to call myself out on my BS. And you start sort of second guessing yourself and trying to force yourself to hustle harder instead of actually taking stock. And that's when I really realized that that's what I needed to do. I needed to stop. And my way of doing that, my way of finding my alignment again, was to completely detox from, the social media, from advice, from gurus, from 5-day Facebook challenges, completely detox from the lot. And bring myself back to my form of self-care, my little exercises that I do to re-engage with my body, to reconnect, because that is how you can really, you feel your authenticity, you feel it. And from there, it only took a week really for me to find my feet. And that's the thing to remember. It actually doesn't take long, because we know what our truth is. It's just, as Namisha says, it's just about having the time and the capacity to be observing it. So that was my journey, and that was only last year. And as Michelle says, we have to consistently be choosing our authenticity. You don't just choose it once and go, right, I'm going to be authentic and that's my decision made. You've got to consistently every single day commit to that authenticity and take charge of that.
I think that's so true, Kirsten. And I know that you and I shared similar coaching experiences where we ended up with a coach that wasn't a good fit for us. And I know it's, as much as we would love for service providers to do a really good job of discovery calls and intake and be like, oh no, you're not the right fit for me. I think the bigger that programs get, the harder it is for them to do that, right? It's just not really possible to do that with like 100 people at the same time,
Sure.
right? And it is something that because if you're looking to grow your business, at some point, you're going to make some kind of investment in your business, whether it's marketing or sales support or a virtual assistant or a coach. And knowing these things, the how to do you can make a huge impact. And that's what, so we're going to talk about them in lots of future episodes in this webinar series. So we won't get that far today, but this is why we're starting with this conversation at this point today, is the work towards figuring out what it looks like to be you. And I actually too, just to share from my perspective. So I think a lot of mompreneurs or moms, especially going from corporate and deciding to start their own business. Why I love to call myself a mompreneur, because I never had any interest in being an entrepreneur until I was a mom. And then it was just going to make more sense for me. And all of these things, it was like all of a sudden the universe is like, what are you doing? Like I remember sitting at my full-time job and just thinking, I don't like any of this, right? Like I'm good at it. I am good at it. I was a vice president of sales and marketing, right? I'm good at it. I loved managing the people and coaching the people, but I don't love writing email funnels. I didn't love any of those things. I love to show up for myself on social media, but I didn't like doing social media posts when I was working in corporate. And I was like, every single minute felt like a bad investment. In the past week, I saw somebody on LinkedIn talking about the ROI of your time. And I've really resonated with that in terms of like, when I was in corporate, the ROI of my time was not good. The ROI was terrible for me personally. I'm sure it was good hopefully it was good for the company. I don't think they would have continued to pay me if it wasn't, but it wasn't good for me. And just thinking about it from that perspective, right? Like I have a limited amount of hours in a day. Where do I want to be spending my time? Where does that create the biggest benefit for me? And I think a lot of times where we get short-sighted on that is most of the time when it's creating the most benefit for you, it's creating the most benefit for other people as well. So even if you're taking that moment to like just be a mom and just be like, I'm momming right now and I don't care if something question pops up on social media that now I'm comment number 89. I was sharing this with a client the other day. I got a client when I was comment 89, right? Like that's based on talking to the people who are your people, right? Like they will pick you anyway if you're comment number 89, if you're the right person, right? So just being in the moment where you are and investing your time, and when it feels like a good investment for you, it's a good investment for more people. So remember that, because that's that thing that's coming from inside. All right, so now we don't want to just give you guys a whole bunch of lovely stories today. We want to give you some good takeaways of things that you can do and how you can think about and how you can kind of dig deep into figuring out how to do you. So I'm going to start with Namisha on this one. You want to go first, Namisha?
Yeah. So there are so many, right? But I will stick to simple and effective because I do simples, right? And the concept here is about knowing, right? Knowing who you are. And the question, and you would have done this before, okay? I'm pretty sure of it, okay? But stick with it, okay? The question to ask yourself, and I would invite you to really think about, and this is you as you are now, right? You would have definitely answered this question at some point. I'm pretty sure of it, right? But think about yourself as you are now, okay? In what you're doing, where your brain's at this moment. What are your top 3 strengths, right? And I don't think we're doing this in the moment live, right? So, but I would invite you to write that down to say, what are my top 3 strengths, okay, as I find myself now. And you know, right, what comes to you, right? But you're looking for some meaning behind that. So if you're writing things like, so I'll share one of mine, if I may. One of my strengths is showing up for others, right? Showing up for my family, showing up for my clients, showing up for people I serve, showing up for people in the street, right? I just have this thing about going above and beyond. There's something in me, right? So that's one of my strengths. And kind of unpack that for you, come up with a recent example, okay? What are my top 3 strengths? And then the build on this that I would invite you to think about, right, is if you've got your 3 strengths, and I spoke about one of mine, right, I will invite you to think about, what is the possible dark side of those strengths? Okay, so if you've got a strength, where could your brain and your thinking take you such that it's the spectrum of unhelpful, right? It's the spectrum of actually holding you back, actually causing a sensation in your body that doesn't serve you. Okay, so if we follow through on my example, right? So my strength is showing up for others, okay, and kind of just being there, giving, doing more sometimes than even perhaps I've got capacity to do, but this is what I do. But there you go, right? The dark side of where that strength of mine takes me is that sometimes I can do too much, right? And I can get into a place of judging, right, in terms of what will people think of me, either when I'm doing it or perhaps if I didn't do it, right? Because if I'm all about showing up for them, and then let's just say one day I couldn't for whatever reason, I'm in my brain, right, second guessing what they're thinking. So my strength that I know and that pretty much serves me takes me to an unhelpful place. The other thing about that is that whilst I do practice self-care a lot, right, because I believe in that, when I'm busy serving others, I forget me. And there's simple examples, right, even just for my family, right, I will do things for them and then I'll forget to do it for myself. Because I'm so busy, right, trying to just keep going and doing and give that I forget to give to myself, right? And I know that's quite a simplistic example, but there will be for you places where your brain will take you. So I'll invite you to think about your top 3 strengths, and then what is the possible dark side that those strengths can take you. Okay, and it's not all the time, it's just noticing where you are on that spectrum, and it's usually with how you're feeling. You know you've stepped over in that strength because it's taking you to an unhelpful place. And also what I would say on that is actually just sitting with it, right? Just really sitting with it and writing down when you have observed that says, oh yeah, you know, another one, I'm super organized, but when I'm super organized, it sometimes takes me a place to prevent spontaneity, prevent fun maybe, right? Because I'm so organized and this is how it has to happen, that then I limit maybe things that might happen, which is cool, right? But yeah, right. So have a go at that. And that is a really good tool for just knowing. And what I have found for me in my coaching is that predominantly the people who are stuck with something, it's actually their strength. The things that they are coming to me with, the work that we do is largely actually one of their strengths. That is what's holding them back, which is ironic, right?
Which is also the good news. Right? So if you feel like you're currently being held back, you have a secret strength you haven't discovered yet. And I think that is really great. I don't know. If you guys, most of you guys know me now. I like the nerd references, right? So when I'm listening to that and like the light side and the dark side, and right, like everybody has light and dark. I won't go into too many Star Wars references, but we all have that, right? Like everything is a spectrum. So even the things like right now that you would consider a weakness are also on a spectrum, right? So like, no, they're not your greatest strengths, but like Namisha mentioned, those might not be the things holding you back, right? It might be a mindset attached to the things that are actually your strengths. That's a very, very interesting flip on it. Thank you very much for that, Namisha. All right.
On that, sorry Tracy, I'll just say if you've got any questions, obviously jot them down and feel free to pick them up, because I know that's super quick and sometimes you just need some time to process.
Yes, and that's a great reminder because we are going to have Q&A after this. So if you guys have any questions about how to execute any of these tips, it's a great thing to ask questions about, because then you actually get what we came here to give you today. And you can also ask questions about any other things as well. All right, Michelle, over to you, my friend.
Hey, well, thank you so much. Well, perfect for me next because I'm kind of the direct opposite. We were just instructed to pick our top 3 strengths. Well, I'm going to tell you from a messaging standpoint. As you know, you got to get your brand on point, your messaging, your voice, your message. So a lot of people I work with, they have including myself, we have too many ideas. So that's what keeps us trapped in our hamster wheel in our brain. We have too many ideas, too many ideas. Well, I love the process of elimination. So I say, okay, if you don't want to decide, so much easier to flip it and go, jot down everything you don't want to do, you don't like, in relation to your business. I don't like this. I don't like this. I mean, it's just, we get down to the nittiest grittiest. And I will tell you, but from the negative comes the positive. So when you cross out all the stuff you don't like, it's pretty obvious on this side. Oh, well, you don't want to do this. So the exact opposite, what about this? And it's a direct flip, and it's so much easier. So it's a very simple little tip. I mean, you could do it for, your clients you want to like, your offers, the way you want to come across on social media. I mean, there's just exactly, and it's all going to be about you, what you're comfortable with, because that's exactly what our businesses should be. It has to be comfort for you so that you can project and be comfortable with other people in your business. So that's what I just make a list of the top things in every part of your business you don't like, and then flip it around, and pretty much there you go. There's everything how you show up.
Boom, simple. Michelle, actually, I have a question just on that, because I would guess that sometimes when people are eliminating things, there's something in their head or the market that's trying to tell them that, oh, but you need to have this, right? Mm-hmm. I know it like comes up for me all the time when it comes to Facebook groups. People are like, well, I have to have a Facebook group. And I'm like, do you have to have a Facebook group?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have like an additional little add-on tip for when those kind of thoughts pop in?
Yeah. For 2 things. First, it's got to be something you like. It's not sustainable, right? Like if you hate Facebook and do not like Facebook, or you just cringe every time, listen to those little cues, and then listen to the parts of your business where you're in the flow. It's cliche to say where time stops, but I swear we've all got those moments. You forgot lunch, you don't even know what time it is, So anyway, go with what you like, because it has to be sustainable with the platform, the formatting, whatever the content, just go with what you like. And then also, it has to be, your clients have to be there. Listen to the cues it's always about the customer, your client, but they have to be there too. Like, don't go pick every platform if it doesn't make sense, your client's not there, right? I mean, and also don't spread yourself too thin. It's so much smarter to just hone down on, I say 2. I mean, unless you're just a social media whiz and just love being out there, just do 2. The one you love the most, and your clients there, and you'll get a farther traction. Then you can expand out, So that's my thing. Just do with what you like and where they are. And usually those are the same things, surprisingly.
Yeah. And that I say that to my clients all the time, is that your ideal clients are everywhere and they're going to find you because you show up. And it's also their connection with you is based on how you show up. So if you're trying to show up everywhere, like Michelle said, you're spread really thin, right? Like it's hard to do that. I, at one point, was doing Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I was just like, this is sustainable. And I don't like Instagram, right? Like it's nothing against Instagram, but it's not the Tracy place, right? Like it's not the place where I feel most authentic showing up. I feel like I have to try very hard. And so like I show up on LinkedIn, I'm like, Michelle, I feel like my people are there. It's probably because I've been on it corporately since, I don't even know, a long time ago. When I started my own business, I had a LinkedIn strategist who like audited my account, and he was like, what are all these things from? And I'm like, probably when I set up my account in like 2007. Yeah, maybe you should update it. Good point. But anyway, I think that is just such a really great rule. And it does come back to the fact that like, so somebody else who doesn't know you, doesn't know what you should do better than you do. So they have done a thing and it has worked for them. And that is wonderful. And you are not them. So it might work for you if it is very aligned with your brand. But that's, again, where you have to come from that place of like, what do I want to do? You'll be able to tell too. So I will tell you this. I bet you, and I don't know, if people who are on Facebook are in like 100 Facebook groups, people who are on Facebook can tell this, right? But like, go to the Facebook groups where you can tell that person loves to show up in their Facebook group versus like 80% of the Facebook groups, which are Facebook groups because someone said you had to have a Facebook group, right? which are the Facebook groups you go to? The ones where the people care about showing up, and because they want to, right? It feels easy for them. It feels fun. And so they make it fun for you, and then you want to hang out there. It's just like going back to being a kid on the playground, right? Like you're having fun. Other kids come over and play with you because you look like you're having fun.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, right? Like,
I love that.
Maybe not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the beauty of what I've realized here, and a lot of people I serve are the people that we're most equipped to help the people we once were. Like, you know, you both came, your businesses came from something to help people who once were you, didn't have a voice, were burned out, didn't have, you know, whatever goals or visions. So that makes it even more relatable when we're in that kind of business. So people definitely want to hear your story. You know, it's not about you, it's them, but they want to have that resonation with someone. So don't hold yourself back, you know, in that regard, and then show up, because they completely know when you're being fake and forced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you guys know it, right? Like you can tell the people that show up that way, and then you're like, ugh, they can tell that about you too. So just do you, man. That's what the whole series is about. Okay, Kirsten's got a very fun exercise for us next.
Oh, couldn't unmute then. Right. Yeah, so mine is it's a breathing exercise. So my truth really is that when we are overthinking and overanalyzing and second guessing ourselves, though I do love the writing exercises too, I do also include those, but it's really helpful to just, like I keep saying, reconnect with our body, because actually our bodies give us so many clues. Our bodies will, you know, they'll tell us if something feels icky, or they'll tell us if something lights us up. But when we're so busy caught up in our head overthinking things, we're not listening, and we're creating a load of drama in our bodies, and it's just, it all feels really yucky. So we're okay for time, are we, Tracy, for me to just take a couple of minutes? Yeah. Okay, so this is called heart activation breathing, and the reason that this is such a gorgeous breathing exercise to do is because it's scientifically been proven to alter the rhythm of our heart, and that actually alters our brain chemistry, and it calms us down, and it brings our heart and our brain into a form of alignment, which we very rarely exist in. So for anyone who wants to do this, just put your hands over your heart. So just slightly to the left in your chest, and just close your eyes. And just for a moment, just start taking some nice deep breaths in. And you can guide that breath to the pit of your belly. But what I want you to do as well is I want you to imagine that breath is going through your heart as you breathe in, and through your heart as you breathe out. And you don't have to force your breath. You can keep it steady, keep it comfortable, just a little bit deeper than you would normally. And you might be visual. You might want to visualize breathing in white energy through your heart, and breathing out a different color as you release things that may be tension, maybe negativity. It's entirely what feels right for you. Just let that process be whatever it is for you. And if you can feel your heartbeat, notice that too, and breathe through your heartbeat. And just let that be your primary focus. But start noticing as well any tension that you're holding on to. No judgment, no labeling it as negative or wrong. Just notice it. And just give it permission to leave your body as and when it's ready to. Keeping on, focusing on your breathing, guiding it in and out through your heart. And just letting your body and mind slow down. And typically we'd stay here a little bit longer, but just for today, just in this instance, we're going to move a little bit quicker than we would normally. But I'd just like for you to think about something maybe business related. It could be personal, just a decision perhaps that you're trying to make at the moment, or something you're unsure about. And keeping your focus again on your breathing in and out through your heart. I'd like you to focus on that thing. Okay, so if it's something specific you're not sure about, focus on that. If it's a decision, focus in on one of the choices. And I want you to notice how your body responds to that. I want you to notice whether it feels a little bit yucky, whether it tenses up, or whether it actually feels kind of nice, a little bit like it's relaxing. You might get a sense of colour if you're a visual person. And I just want you to take a moment, still keeping your breathing steady through your heart. I'd like you to just examine any sensations that come up without any judgment. And you know, you can ask yourself, what is this sensation? What does this feeling mean? You can ask yourself, is this the right choice for me? To help bring up those sensations if you're struggling a little bit to feel anything. And just feel into it. And for the sake of time, I'm going to bring us back sooner, but if you have other choices that you are trying to choose between, you would then go through each and every one and you would be trying it on for size, basically, within your body, seeing which one feels most aligned for you, letting your body make the choice for once instead of your head. But in any case, for now, just give yourself a little bit of gratitude, say thank you to your body for its guidance. Take 3 nice deep breaths into your belly. And you can lower your hands. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back. So this is something that has a cumulative effect. Connecting with, you're effectively connecting into your, you know, whether you want to call it your inner wisdom, your inner guidance, your intuition, that's effectively what this brings you home to. And so if you can spare 2 to 3 minutes doing that every single day, then when it comes to using it as a tool for, you know, for making decisions, for trying different options on for size, then you will find you get a response that feels stronger and you'll get it more and more quickly. So it's something to be practicing daily, kind of like meditation or other breathwork exercises. But yeah, this is the one that this is my go-to for clients as well, to just bring us back if we feel like we've got too confused and too messy in our heads.
Oh, thank you, Kirsten. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like so good.
Good. Good.
I think that sometimes it's just so underestimated still, I think, just the power of breath and being in the moment. I know I was speaking with one of my clients last week about how like everybody's desire to be like happy or exuberant or like joyful all the time. And there's so much space and calm in this place of just being. So I'm going to share one thing as well, but I want to just remind you guys that if you have questions, post them and then we will get to them. Just before I move on, for Kirsten, what is the name of the breathing exercise again?
It's called heart activation breathing. So HAB for short, it's known as well.
Heart activation breathing. I feel that my heart has been activated.
Good. Great.
I love that so much. Okay, so the one tip / exercise that I want to leave you guys with today is something that I like to call 10 minutes on purpose. And so it's similar in terms of the creating space to the breathing exercise, but what I don't want it to be is a time for you to think about things. So no problem solving. It is 10 minutes for you, ideally every single day. I don't know anybody who's been able to jump right into the 10 minutes. So maybe start at like 1 minute and move on up. But it's time for you to just be. So if you want to grab a hot cup of tea or a coffee, or you like to take a bath or something like that too, but it's an empty space. It's an empty space in your head where you are not trying to create a meal plan. You are not trying to figure out a business problem. You're not worrying about the laundry that you left in the washing machine and how long has it been in there before it goes in the dryer. You're not thinking about any of those things. You are just being. And these are the types of exercises that help you to find that space. It allows you to connect to the things that you love about yourself, because no matter where you're at today, no matter where your business is at today, there's something about you that you love. There's something about your business. There's specific activities in your business that you love. And this can drive some of the other exercises too, right? It might give you a space to reveal your strengths, or reveal the fact, like we were talking about video. I love showing up on video. One of the reasons why this webinar series happened is because I realized that I like to show up on video. So I'm going to show up that way more often and create opportunities for myself to do that. So those are the types of things that we can just, it's the feeling, it's not thinking, it's just feeling and appreciating yourself for who you actually are. So I would challenge you to get up to 10 minutes, because it is so, in terms of self-care, personally, it has been the #1 thing that I've been able to do that gives me the space to just be like, okay, what is Tracy all about? Let's get back into the zone. What is Tracy all about? And then show up like that. And that's it. That's really, in the figuring out how to do you puzzle, it's creating the space how to figure it out. And you got 4 really great spaces today to help you guys figure that out. Okay, so quick questions. Adrienne had a comment here, which I did want to just give our experts a chance to discuss. Choosing a coach can be stressful when you don't have a lot of money to test out coaches. There are so many to choose from, and you worry that you'll choose wrong and end up in the same place, but with less money. I think Kirsten and I talked about that at the beginning, and that has definitely happened to us. So it is a concern. So specifically, when we look at the scenario of choosing a coach, is there something that you guys want to just give Adrienne as a tip of, like, if you're going to choose a coach, make sure you look at XYZ. You guys can raise your hand and go to town on the Q&A part.
Can I jump in, Tracy?
Yes, please.
2 things that come up for me, if I may, as a potential client, okay, is to jump on the discovery call, the clarity call, the whatever it is, right? You know, take that, because that is the key to deciding, right? So take that, and if they don't offer it, then look for it, you know, ask for that, because that's an important step. But in that, think about your outcome and think about the connection that you are having with the other human being in front of you. Because yes, they're a coach, but actually they're human. And if you have a connection with them, you know, largely there is a foundation. And I know it would be that maybe the first time you're seeing them, speaking to them, hearing them, but you will feel something going back to your body. You know, what is your body telling you? What are you feeling? What sensation is it? Get curious about that in the moment. How are they making you feel? And does that make you feel good? You know, go with that. You know, they say about the gut instinct or something, and there is a gut-brain connection. Go there.
I totally agree. Michelle or Kirsten, would you like to add anything?
I was just going to say, I think, Kristen, you should, because you had that experience. I'm so intrigued by, because I would say exactly what Namisha just said. I would love to hear Kristen's point of view.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, again, I absolutely love what Namisha said. From my point of view, I think, where I went so very wrong was because I was so overwhelmed with all the messaging that's out there. If you're on social media, you're getting swamped and bombarded by coaches and their messaging, and different coaches telling you that their technique's the surefire way, and suddenly this amazing pressure to get 10K months when you haven't necessarily met your first 1,000, pounds or dollars. Get really clear on what you need support on in your business, what you feel is really what you're really struggling with. So I was in such a fearful place that I really felt like strategy was going to solve everything out. But in hindsight, what I really would have done better with would have been an alignment coach of my own, just for a few sessions to bring me back home. So I think check out your headspace before you start getting on those discovery calls. And if you're fearful, do some work to get yourself out of that fear space. Talk to a loved one or a friend who knows you really well. If you've got someone around you who's very supportive and listens well, and start having that conversation out loud with them, just to help you really get clear on the areas that you are actually lacking knowledge, as opposed to the areas where perhaps you're telling yourself you're lacking knowledge, but you want a coach who can complement your abilities, really. I would say that's quite key.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I would just add is that coaches specialize in specific areas, right? So like messaging, sales, marketing, a variety of different places, alignment, right? And just a lot of times, and Michelle kind of spoke to this with her exercise as well, is it seems encouraging sometimes to jump to the answer, right? Like the solution, which is like choosing a system or choosing a channel or choosing any of those things. And there will always be somebody who could tell you that that's the thing you should do. And likely, if you, like, even if you're at the place where you haven't invested in a coach, you feel like, oh, I don't know, like, I don't want to have a Facebook group, but maybe I should, because like that's how you make money online. If you think those things, that is showing you that there's a misalignment there. So like you don't need a Facebook group coach to teach you how to do a Facebook group, right? Like that's not for you. So really is working through those things that make you feel who you are. And one thing, I know that Michelle has a hard stop, so I want to be respectful of time. And one other thing I want to just leave you guys with, because everybody speaks about getting uncomfortable, right? Growth comes from being uncomfortable, but there's two kinds of discomfort. There's discomfort because you're growing, and there's discomfort because it is misaligned with your personal brand. Growth is not going to come in that place where you are misaligned with your personal brand. There are so many options, you guys. So we're looking at strategies and tactics, and something feels bad. Just trying to do it more isn't necessarily the growth zone. It may just be chipping away slowly at your personal brand. And being able, like doing some of these exercises, figuring out those spots where and it's a journey, right? Like you're going to continually learn new things about yourself, but where you feel like you can make that decision from your heart and it's a good decision for you, then that's the key. And there are coaches, Adrian, I hope you know this about me. You've been in my group for a while. There are coaches that will help you because they're there to help you, right? Not because you need to pay them thousands of dollars to get access to their teachable platform. Right? There are people, like Namisha said, most people have a discovery call. Like jump on that discovery call, talk it out, right? Like, and be real. That's the other thing, guys. If you're going to have the discovery call, you got to show up real. Otherwise, they can't tell if you're a good fit either. So with that, a quick question from Rosalind. What do we use for video? Does anybody want to, like, quite honestly, I just use Zoom and record it, or I go live on Facebook. That's what I do.
I would just, the easiest thing, pull out your phone, there's a million different free photo editors out there that you can put captions, and definitely have captions, because people consume content in different ways, or a lot of people at work, or most people are at home working, but whatever, you can read it faster than sometimes you want to play, or there's your kid sleeping, whatever. So there's a couple of them. There's Capwing, there's Veed, there's Clipcamp. I think that's the name of it. There's so many out there. So that's what I would do. Don't make it complicated, because that complexity is the enemy of, action. So go for it.
Yeah, pick one. And if you don't like it, pick a different one. That's how I tell people to do things. All right. Thank you so much to Kirsten, Michelle, and Namisha for sharing your insights today. It was so, so wonderful to have you guys with us today. Thank you for everybody who attended live. Thank you for everyone who's watching the live stream on Facebook. This recording is going to be posted on YouTube after the fact, so you guys will have access to it again if you want to come back and practice your breathing exercises. And if you want any other reference to the exercises as well, I will post the link in the event on both Facebook and LinkedIn, so you guys can find it. And with that, I wish you a lovely afternoon, evening.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah,
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.